right, I think I'll kick us off now. Materials engineering industry hour. We will start tonight. I'm Kristen Bergen. For those of you who don't know, I advise undeclared engineering students. And actually this year I'm also advising the ECSE students, which is pretty cool. I work in the first year engineering advising hub, and I am helping bring industry hour to all students who benefit from learning about the industry connected to all the engineering majors. So tonight is materials engineering, and how we will begin is we will start with our usual and super informative presentation by CCPD. They are going to take about 7-ish minutes to talk about hiring statistics and recruiters, and I'm sure that Kristen has some advice for the upcoming career fair that she'll probably share with all of us. We will give everyone a chance to ask questions of Kristen if you have questions for the Career Center. And then we will transition around 6 o'clock over to Marie. Marie will introduce herself. She is the Materials Engineering Advisor in the First Year Advising Hub, and then she will have all of our wonderful panelists then introduce themselves before we head into the questions, which of course is the meat of the industry hour. And at the end, we will do our usual, we'll save about 10 minutes for students to ask questions. For anyone who does have questions, you can absolutely throw them in the chat. You can share it with everybody, or you can message it just to me. And what I will do is I will copy and paste all the questions into a Word document where we'll keep it safe until that part right at the end, and I'll go through the questions in order, or in an order that makes sense depending upon where the conversation was left off. And then with that being said, I pass the reins over to you, Kristen. Take it away.
Oh, thank you so much, Kristen. Yes, as Kristen said, my name is Kristen as well, Kristen Kettering from the CCPD. I am a career counselor there, and I'm going to go ahead and just take a moment and share my screen here. I have a little PowerPoint that I'm going to do. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. So yes, I'm from the CCPD. And again, we're located in the DCC building and in Suite 209. And how you can remember that is if you know where the Starbucks Cafe is, we're literally in the floor below the Starbucks Cafe, right underneath it. So just go down those stairs and we'll be right there. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about materials, but first I just want to talk a little bit about what does our office do? How can we help you? So we help with anything and everything career related. Here's just some major topics that we can help you with, but really anything at all career related. So resume and cover letter, critiques and helping you create those, interview prep. So an interview coming up, we can do it as formal or as informal as you would like. We help students with internship, co-op, and full-time job searching. So for those of you that might not know, an internship is a 2 to 4 month experience. It's typically 1 semester or 1 summer. A co-op is a semester and a summer paired together, and it's typically a 6 to 9 month experience. And then, of course, full-time job search. We also help students with salary negotiation and offer letters for both internships and full-time. If you get an offer letter for an internship and you don't really understand parts of it, we'd be happy to look it over and help you with that. We can also help you with career assessment and choosing a major, and not even just choosing a major, but also maybe just helping you within the major that you've declared. So if you declare a major and you're just not sure what types of jobs are out there within the types of engineering areas, we can help you with that. We also help students with the graduate school searching and application process, as well as any kind of career fair prep or employer correspondence. So as you know, a career fair is coming up at the end of this week. So we help prep for those and employer correspondence. So anytime you need to get a hold of an employer, need to find contact information, write an email, learn how to use LinkedIn, anything like that we can help with. So let's talk a little bit about salary statistics for material science engineering graduates. So the RPI class of 2020, these are the latest statistics we have for materials engineering. Their average salary was of their job, full-time jobs that they obtained was 93,000 and change. The RPI class of 2020 range in salaries was between 70 and 120,000. So you can see materials engineers, they get paid very, very well. And RPI students do very well with this major. So there's another site I just want to let you know about that you can look up federal or national statistics, and that is bls.gov. It's the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and these are national statistics updated on a yearly basis. Their 2020 salary statistic reports a median annual salary of 95,000 and change for materials engineers. So again, very, very good. They do very well. And where you find our statistics on our website is if you just go to ccpd.rpi.edu, you click on students, and then you scroll down and you click on hiring statistics. And when you click on hiring statistics, this is what you get. So you'll see the annual report from the last 3 years. I pulled our statistics off of this 2020 report here, but you'll also notice there's lists of companies that hire for internships and co-ops per major that you can look RPI students specifically. So you can click on this and see within materials engineering what companies hire for internships and co-ops, and then lists of full-time employers for all the different schools. So companies that hire for the School of Engineering, specifically materials, those companies. So this is a lot of great information just right here on our website. So here's just a sampling. It really is just a sampling of companies that hire RPI material science for internships and co-ops. So you can see it's just a real mix of different types of companies. You'll see there's national labs here. For those of you that might not know, the federal government runs labs, national labs all over the country. They're literally located on all edges of the country. And they're a really great thing to look into because they do research in everything you can think of, and they hire for internships and full-time positions, and they love RPI students. So companies that hire for full-time positions, materials engineering. Again, this is just a sampling, but you'll see I just kind of looked at the list and put a few down here on the slide. And again, you'll see, laboratories, more national laboratories here, U.S. Air Force, so government and military positions, and then big companies here. That's great. So skills to emphasize on your resume if you are not only an engineer, but specifically a materials engineer student. So I say scientific knowledge, so knowledge of physics, chemistry, and math. And there's many ways to show these skills, and that's why making an appointment with us is really helpful, because we can go through and show you which parts of your resume you can kind of highlight these different skills. Of course, it's great to have an actual skills section, but besides the skills section, you want to sprinkle these skills throughout your resume multiple times. So your scientific skills, knowledge of physics, chemistry, math, your technical skills, specifically software. So here's just a sampling again of software that is really related to materials engineering. Your analytical skills, your data analysis skills, your lab skills, so testing, evaluating, diagnosing problems. You want to showcase that. Any chance you get in taking design or doing anything related to design, production, and processing, that's what you want to highlight that on your resume. And then these last two are really for all engineering areas. So effective organizational skills and communication skills, ability to collaborate with others and problem solve. Very important. All right. And lastly, I just want to let you know, I let you know what our office does, but now I want to let you know how you get in contact with us. So you can schedule a 30-minute appointment with one of us in Handshake. So if you just log on to Handshake, click on Career Center, and then click on Appointments. I specifically meet with students in the School of Engineering, so you'll see my name. You can choose an appointment type this semester. So we're still offering the virtual WebEx appointment option, but you could also choose an email consult as well as in person. And again, we're located at DCC 209, right under the Starbucks Cafe. Virtual drop-ins. So every Wednesday we have what's called virtual drop-ins. They're done through WebEx. There's a link in Handshake Events tab. And it's every Wednesday, no appointment needed. It starts at 10 o'clock in the morning and goes to 6 o'clock at night. So if you just want to have your resume reviewed, or you have a quick question, or you just want to have, talk about interviews or anything like that, please feel free to join us for those drop-ins. And I believe that is it. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kristen.
No problem.
So gonna pause for a second just to see if anyone has any questions. And I will actually pause this time. I know I tend to talk right through it, but yeah, type it in the box or unmute yourself if you have a question.
I'll bite Kristen. I have a question for Kristen. The career fair is coming up, as you know, and a lot of times we get questions from our first year students, Kristen, about I'm a first year student, I don't really have a resume, I don't really have a lot of qualifications. Does it make sense for me to prepare for the career fair, and does it make sense for me to go to the career fair? So I'm wondering if you might weigh in for a minute on that. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem, Marie. Yes, great question. So, yes, if you can pull it together in the next couple of days, get a resume put together, maybe join us in that Wednesday drop-in time to have your resume looked at, or if you're able to get an appointment with us, that's wonderful. Or email us, that's okay too. But yes, if you can pull it together, it is really worth it. If you can't make it to this one, the CCPD holds a career fair in early February as well. So if you just can't make it to this one, you can't pull it together, definitely think about joining our February one. There's for many different reasons. I think if anything, it just gives you practice. It gives you preparation for the following year when maybe you're looking for arch opportunities and things like that. And if anything, if you can attend this year's career fair or this career fair here, you can just join group sessions. So this career fair, you can do one-on-one sessions with employers. If you're not quite ready for that, you can absolutely just sign up for some group sessions and just learn about companies. Get practice hearing about what companies are hiring in my major. What is this all about? What is a typical group session like with an employer? What types of questions are other students asking at the end of the group session? And then make note of the companies that you want to go back and visit in February, that kind of thing. So I think that would be really helpful if you could at some point this year. And keep in mind that freshmen absolutely can get internships this summer. So, I'm talking as if, all freshmen just join a career fair for practice, but that's absolutely not true. Many of our freshmen do get internships between their freshman and sophomore year that summer. So if you have a resume put together, go for it. Just go for it. You have nothing to lose. You're just going to learn from the experience.
Great. Thank you, Kristen.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think that's actually really helpful, and I'm glad you asked, Marie. And I can say to any first years in the room, I actually have several of my advisees who have already told me that they've signed up for a few of the info sessions or sessions that are coming up. So that is really cool too. I love to hear that.
Yeah, that's great.
Awesome. Well, as always, Kristen, thank you so much for
Thank
hanging
you.
out with us.
Thank you.
And we love the information. And yes, this is recorded, so you will get everything Kristen said on our YouTube channel. And I will send out her slides tomorrow, so you guys can have those as you move forward in making a decision.
Right.
Um,
Thank you. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye. And now I'm going to pass the reins over to Marie, who will introduce herself, introduce our panelists, and then head right into our questioning.
Great, thank you, Kristen. We have the famous team of Kristen and Kristen starting us off, so that's not too confusing. I just want to say welcome to everyone who's on the call tonight. I'm going to ask our panelists who have cameras, Sarah and Sydney, and I see that Liz has already got herself on there. If you want to put your cameras on, I'm going to have you introduce yourselves in a minute. And then we also have Doug Gross is joining us by phone because he's up in the Adirondacks where the internet's not so awesome, but we'll be able to hear him, which is great. I think we have an awesome panel put together for tonight, and I'm so excited to hear all of you speak to our students. So I will definitely get right to that. I guess probably tell you who I am. My name is Marie Diefenbach. I am advising the materials engineers this year. For the first time for me, I'm in charge of the hub, the engineering hub for RPI, and I've been advising mechanical, aerospace, and nuclear students for the last 20 years because I am legitimately old and I've been at RPI a long time. But I'm excited to work with the materials engineers. I've been speaking with a bunch of materials faculty and a couple of students, and I'm really excited to get to know more about this major and more of your current and past students this year. So to that end, we have a great panel, and I'm going to start with Sydney, and then we'll go to Sarah and Liz, and then Doug. And I'm just going to ask you to briefly introduce yourself, your name, where you work currently, where you're from originally, and where you are now, and the degrees you've got. We've got two people joining us from the East Coast, and then we've got two on the left coast. So I appreciate you taking time out of your busy workday to do this, and I appreciate your companies allowing you to do this. So I'm very grateful for those of you who are Sydney and Liz joining us during the middle of your, I'm sure, busy workday. So thank you for that. So we'll start with Sydney. Your name, where you work, where you're from, where you live now, and your degree.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Sydney. Right now, I'm an intern at Pacific Northwest National Labs in Richland, Washington. I'm originally from Nottingham, New Hampshire, so it's quite a far ways away. And then, of course, I'm still in school. I'm a junior material science and engineering major.
Awesome, thank you. And Sydney is also this year the vice president, I believe, of your student group Material Advantage. Is that correct, Sydney?
That's right, yeah.
And Sarah actually is a past member, so we can talk a little bit about that group. A little bit ahead in the program, because I think all of our materials engineers should be aware of that group, and it's a great way to get involved in your department. So I'm going to go on to Sarah, who's our most recent alum, and ask you to introduce yourself as well. Thanks, Sarah.
Yep. So my name's Sarah Delacos. I currently work in the Edison Engineering Developmental program for GE Power. And I graduated class of 2020 from RPI with my material science and engineering degree. I'm also pursuing my master's in material science and engineering at NC State right now. It's a part of the program that I'm in through GE. And originally from Niskayuna, New York, which isn't too far from RPI, and currently working in Schenectady. So basically down the road from where I grew up.
And I think it's helpful for our students to know that there are opportunities right in our backyard here. If students do like the Capital District and would like to stay, there are certainly opportunities for them here, or on the absolute opposite end of the country as well. So next I'm going to go to Liz, who's our next most recent alum, and just ask her to introduce herself.
Hi guys, I'm Liz Valette. I'm currently a welding engineer up at Blue Origin it's up around Kent, Washington, so just outside of Seattle. I'm from Bethlehem, Connecticut. I now live in Tacoma, so just south of Seattle. And I graduated in December 2017 with my bachelor's and master's from RPI. I did the co-term program. Yep.
Awesome. Thanks, Liz. And then finally, we're going to go to our seasoned veteran here. We're going to ask Doug to introduce himself and talk a little bit about where he's from and what he's doing now. And later we'll talk about what he's done in the past.
Hi, this is Doug Gross. I am retired for the second time, so I'm not at president of New York Creates as what was probably listed on my resume, and I recently retired for the second time, so we'll see if we can do it correctly this time. And so I'm originally from the Mohawk Valley, Mohawk, New York, and I live now between Connecticut and the Adirondacks, and I have 4 degrees from RPI, 3 in materials engineering many decades ago, as well as an MBA.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Doug. So what we're going to do tonight is I'm going to talk to each of you for a few minutes and ask each of you a few questions individually, and then we'll go kind of round robin style in through some general questions that are of general interest to our students. But I just like to have each of you have a little chance to for our students to get to know you a little bit better, and the rest of you can. The rest of the panelists during that time can probably have some dinner or a cup of coffee or something. But anyway, I'd like to start with Sydney. So Sydney, as you mentioned, you're currently on your away semester, correct? And the internship at Pacific Northwest National Labs as part of that away semester for your arch. I'm just wondering if you could share a little bit about what your day-to-day is like at the lab, and if it involves being underwater, which kind of looks like there from your background. I would love to hear about that. And what do you enjoy about your position? And is there anything you don't like? And if you could talk about how you found that internship at the National Lab.
Yeah, so I'll start off with my background.
I
As an
think you're on
intern,
mute.
Oh, can you not hear me? Oh, no.
I can hear you.
I can hear you
Oh,
too.
okay.
Yes, Sydney, I can hear you too. Marie, can you hear me?
No.
We can't hear
It
Marie now.
looks like Marie may have lost her sound, but Sydney, if you want to just answer her question, and I will get in touch with Marie.
Okay. So
You
my
want to?
background, oh,
I still can't hear you. Why is Sydney not working? I'm going to try mute you and unmute you.
can you hear me?
Kristen, do you see anything why Sydney is not coming through here?
Hi.
Because I am not.
We can hear her. Hold on, I'm typing to Marie.
Oh,
Okay.
something on my end. Oh, weird. Okay. Awesome. Let me try, maybe it's my headphones.
All right, can I hear Sydney?
Hello, can you hear me?
Now I can hear Sydney. All right,
Okay.
sorry, something happened to mine. I don't know what happened to my tech. Sorry about that. Sorry, Sydney, I
okay.
apologize.
That's all right. So as an intern, I just got stuck in kind of a crappy office, so there's a lot of stuff behind me, and figured I'd put up a nice Finding Nemo background. But at the lab, my day-to-day differs quite a bit. I think it's especially true at PNNL, but everybody has multiple projects they're working on at once, so you kind of make your own day. But in my group, I'm in the materials characterization group, and right now I'm working in atom probe tomography with thin film oxides. So right now I'm doing some data analysis, and then I'm also working on some machine learning code to kind of automate and speed up that data analysis process. So far, it's been a really great experience. I've only been here for about a month, but I'm learning a lot. Everybody is super nice. I don't really have a negative so far besides my office, but I'm not in here too much, so it's okay.
That's not a terrible thing. If the only bad thing is your office, that's not too bad. So with the machine learning and data analysis and things you've been doing, what's your, programming background, and, like, what's your background in that in
Yeah,
that sense?
so I've only taken computer science one at RPI. So it's mostly just been me teaching myself how to do everything. But it's fun. I got put in contact with machine learning experts at the lab, so they're kind of helping me out too.
And what a great skill to learn, because, to have that on your resume and be able to learn that directly from someone, that's awesome, because you're going to use that in no matter what you end up doing, right? So I'm glad you're having a good experience there. How did you get the internship at the National Lab? Is there a long lead time on those?
Oh, no. So I applied through a program called SULI. I have no idea what the acronym is, but it's SULI. And they basically accept you to the initial program, and then they send your resume out to the labs. And based on what you want to do, the labs will pick you out and say, come work for us. So that's how I ended up all the way in Washington.
And are you excited to be out there in Washington?
It's a little bit different. I was born and raised in the Northeast, but it's a good experience to have. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So in terms of, so I'm glad you went through the SULI program. I've worked with many students over the years who have gone through that program, whether it's summer internships or internships for your away semester. I think the opportunities there are great. And as you say, they kind of shop you around a little bit, so you don't have to do all that work yourself. So that's kind of cool, right? So I guess my other questions are, I'd like you to talk about the student groups you're involved with, because not only are you Vice President of Materials Advantage this year, but you've also been involved with Society of Women Engineers and the Women's Mentoring Program at RPI. And I'm wondering, how did you decide to become involved in those groups in particular? And, what is it that you enjoy about them?
Yeah, so I call myself an overcommitter. I'm involved in about 3 other clubs outside of those. But those are my 3 favorite clubs. I think the Women at Rensselaer Mentor Program, I don't know if we have any women materials majors in the call besides the alums, but I was paired with a mentor my freshman year, and I just loved it so much that I continued. I joined the e-board and I kind of worked my way up to president. And now I'm just really passionate about teaching women, how they can stand out and feel confident in engineering. With the Society of Women Engineers, I think it's great for everyone to get involved, even if you aren't a woman in engineering. They hold a lot of social events that are fun to go to, and then also a ton of professional events. We have meetings with employers. We have huge networking nights right before the career fair, so it's a really great resource. My role on the board this year is Exploring Engineering Day co-director. So we hold this huge outreach event in February for all the elementary and middle schoolers in the area, and all the clubs around campus have activities for them to do, and it's a whole bunch of fun, especially if you love working with kids. So if anybody's interested in that, definitely look out for the volunteer form that's going to get sent out early next semester. And then finally, Material Advantage. I think it's just kind of natural to join if you're a materials engineering major. There's not many of us, so it's a good way to meet the people that are actually in your major. I know freshman year, I only knew one other person. And once I joined, I met literally everyone, all like 25 of us in the school. So it's a lot of fun. We have social events, and then we also have things that we call mat chats, which are just where we have short presentations from the professor, and they talk about, what they did for their education, what they might have done in industry, and then also what they're doing right now in terms of research. So it's a really relaxed setting to get to know your professors, and people usually enjoy them quite a bit.
That's awesome. And I've advised nuclear students in the past, which is also a relatively small major, as you know. I always feel like being a member of a smaller major at RPI is kind of a huge advantage, because you do get to know all your faculty members and they know you. There's kind of no back of the classroom when you don't have a really big number of students in the classroom. So for students who want to get lost, it's probably not great, but I think it's great for the majority of students who will be known and recognized, and you all know each other, so that when you're in those project-based classes, you know who to work with and all of those things, right? So and you know, having worked in engineering at RPI for 20 years, I know Material Advantage has always had a great reputation as a student group. You guys are active and you do cool things, and you know, it's always a strong student group. So I would definitely encourage any of the new and prospective materials engineer students to become involved with it for sure. And then I guess my final question, Sydney, and it's probably premature knowing you're at your internship for a month there. You know, at this point, you know, if you had a dream job within materials engineering, do you have one, and what would it look like?
Oh, I have
No
no
is an
idea.
okay answer too.
I have no idea. My plan right now is I'm testing out the research side of things, and then I'm going to look for an internship this summer in industry. So hopefully I can figure things out a little bit better. I'm too indecisive to have an answer right now.
And that's okay, because you don't have a lot of experience to go on, right? And I mean, those are, you know, by working at a research institution, you know, you dip your toe in there, and then if you go into, you know, hardcore industry and dip your toe into that, you know, I've had students do multiple internships, small companies, big companies, older established companies, startups, and just kind of get a vibe for the different cultures and where you feel like comfortable. And I think that's probably the smartest way to do it, because everything looks good on paper until you're there, and you know, you kind of see how it works with you, right? So I get that. So thank you for sharing, and thank you for being honest on all of those questions. And we'll definitely circle back when we get to our general questions. So I want to go over to Sarah. And as Sarah said when she introduced herself, she's working at GE as part of their leadership program, which is a rotational program, correct? Is that the way it still
Yep.
works? Yeah, I thought so. I'm wondering first if you could talk to our students about what that exactly is, because GE is not the only company that does those leadership rotational type programs. And I think a lot of our students don't know what they entail. And if you can tell us a little bit about that and why that was appealing to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the current program I'm in, like I already mentioned, is called the Edison Engineering Developmental Program. Every business of GE has it, but I am specifically working in GE Power. So it basically entails 4 6-month rotations within the business that you are hired. And so for power specifically, you can kind of rotate from gas power to steam power to generator. And you get a lot of different views of the business itself and the different technologies that we're working on. So I really do like that aspect of it. And while you're rotating, you also get your master's online. The first year, you're basically taking classes through GE, specifically learning about the GE technologies and power itself. And then the second year that I just started this past summer, you actually take online classes, as I already mentioned, minor through NC State. And so just while doing that, you're also doing a bunch of different leadership programs, different seminars through GE, things along those lines. Sometimes you have like week-long trainings, but ultimately it's the base of it is the master's and the rotational. So that was really appealing to me just because I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do coming out. I did have an internship through Corning, in which I did manufacturing. I also did undergraduate research at RPI, but just specifically in materials itself, I didn't know what I wanted to focus on or what I wanted to do. So I liked how this program offered me basically the opportunity to try out something. If I didn't like it, I could try out a different role. So it has been really beneficial in that. It's also great because it's very easy when you join a company to kind of find your niche and focus like very much on that one thing and kind of lose sight of what the entire company is working on. So it's nice to be able to see, like I said, the technology from different points of view and kind of understand this one part and then move to a new rotation and kind of see how that fits into another part. Just overall gives you a better understanding.
That's great. And so has it turned out to be, you know, what you were hoping it would be in terms of, you know, all of those factors?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say so. So me specifically, I'm on my third rotation. My first rotation was very mechanical design based, which I thought I would like the design process, but turns out I really didn't like it that much. So it was great to be able to try that out. My second rotation was in a materials test lab, which I didn't think I wanted to do lab work, but ended up completely loving. So it was, great being able to get that opportunity as well. And then my third rotation, which I'm in currently, I'm doing more, it's mechanical design, but more materials based, which I find I do like. However, I like being in a lab setting more. So it's, just in general, it's good to get different sides of things and kind of see, what environment I like working in. If I like going into a lab or if I like working more remote, because GE offers me that right now. If I can do hybrid or in my last rotation, I was completely in person. So it's good to get, all these different aspects, not only the technology I'm working on, but like specifically what the work environment I'm in, if I like that or not.
That's awesome. That's great. Thank you. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about, you referred to the multiple research projects that you did while you were at RPI. And I'm wondering, how you obtained those, what your experience was like. Did that help you kind of start to figure out what aspect of materials you were interested in? Because you did a bunch of them.
Yeah, so I was actually lucky because my dad is a chemical engineering professor at RPI. So he got me my first research position just in the chemical engineering department because I kind of wanted some technical experience. This was actually before my freshman year of college, so I was really lucky being able to start that early. However, just from there, I kind of was able to talk to different students that were in the chemical engineering department and see which projects they were working on. And, everyone always needs help. So just kind of offering help where it's needed. Specifically for materials, I basically just talked to my professors and kind of wanted to learn more about what they were working on. And like I said, help is pretty much always needed in any lab. So if you find a project that you like, just reaching out and seeing if there's anything that you can do is usually more successful than not. It's honestly just like talking around or asking around, talking to your professors. That's the best way to do it because, they're the ones actually doing the research. So they're the ones that are going to help you get that position.
Now, Sarah, when you did URP, you have the opportunity to do it for credit, and then you can apply that credit towards some of your undergraduate degree requirements. You can get paid, or you could do it just for the experience. So I'm just wondering, how did you handle those when you did your URPs?
So I want to say I did 4 URPs. One semester I did for elective credit. So one of my materials electives was taken care of by this research project, but every other semester from there on, I was just working for money, basically.
Got you. All really good reasons, I would argue, and really compelling reasons for students to do them. And they also look good on your resume when you're a first year student and you're not being able to find an internship or something like that. It's a good thing to get on your resume because a lot of times your professors are sometimes working with companies or with the government and they have research funded by them, and it just gets you out into the world a bit and gets some good experience on your resume when you don't have a lot of options sometimes for doing that. So I think that's great. And then I guess my last question is, looking at your resume, holy smokes, you had a lot going on when you were at RPI. You were on the track and field team, you were the president of the varsity track and field at one point, you're the captain, and you were doing these research projects, and you were maintaining a good GPA, and doing all your coursework. How did you find the time to balance all of those things? How did you prioritize and how did you balance all those things at once?
I feel like this is such a typical answer and like you're gonna get it from literally anyone you talk to that has a lot on their plate, but the worst thing you can do is procrastinate. Even if you have, like time in your day and you just want to like, push off your homework another like 3 hours or like push it off like another 3 days because, it's due on Friday and it's only Tuesday or whatever. What I found is the absolute best thing, even if you're not gonna like finish your homework 3 days before it's due, at least start it. Like use whatever minute you have to your advantage, because ultimately it's easy to lose track of time and to like lose track of your assignments, how much you have going on in a day. So honestly, the best thing I did in college was not procrastinate, and I stand by that. And I think that's the best advice I can give.
And I'm thinking that folks at GE would probably say the same.
Yeah.
I would think yes. We kind of think the same for our students as well. So that's really helpful. Thank you. And we have, we have a thing on the back wall of the hub. We have these giant whiteboard like calendars, and we call it the time is not your friend wall, because we've got, all the deadlines for the courses. We've got, when the exams come up. And I find it super helpful. I mean, we all have, calendars on, we carry around with us, right? But for me, there's something helpful about looking at the semester or even a month as a whole and seeing where those trends are, right? And you can see like, all right, that middle of October, man, that is ugly. So if I've got stuff coming up, I can kind of look back at the end of September and say, I really should be using this time that I don't have a lot due. So I'm a huge fan of like just visually seeing that. So it's just kind of a little bit of a reminder. However you choose to do it, I think for our first year students to get in the habit of that. And, first day of the semester, right, you get all your different syllabi, you put all those deadlines in, and then you can see where those trends in the semester are going to be for you. I think first semester freshman year is a great time to get your organizing act together, because it's only going to get more complicated as time goes on, as you join all these clubs and possibly become an overcommitter like Sydney and like so many of our students are. Thanks, Sarah. I appreciate all those answers. So I'm going to move on to Liz. Liz, when I saw your resume, I have to say, as someone who has advised Aero students for 20 years, I saw your resume and I thought, man, the Aero students would love to hear from her for sure. So you've worked at SpaceX. You're now currently working at Blue Origin. So you're doing definitely the cool factor companies, without a doubt. And what I'm really curious about is, how did you first get drawn to materials engineering? How did you find out you're interested in metallurgy and welding, of all things? Like what was it that really made you think this is what I want to do? And then I want to talk about what it's like to work on rockets and doing really cool stuff. So if you could just tell us a little bit about your early materials experiences.
Yeah, so I came into RPI as an undeclared engineer, and I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I like chemical engineering, I like mechanical, and then I came in with a whole boatload of AP courses. So I pretty much was ahead a whole semester, and I just jumped right into material science for engineers because someone was like, this could be really cool. And like I heard, it was like, oh, a lot of old metallurgists are leaving the field. I had no idea what metallurgy was, but I was like, let's just go for it. So I jumped in and I just fell in love with it because materials just describes like how the entire world works around you. Everything you look at, it's basically materials. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then metallurgy was kind of odd. I thought I was going to go in and do polymers and biomaterials, and I was like, oh, that's the hot new thing. I took a polymers course, and let's just say I like polymers, but not that much. They still have great applications, but it wasn't for me. And I got a internship at GE my sophomore summer, and I worked in the materials lab there. So it was bus bars and circuit breakers. So kind of just everything you would find in your household to massive industrial scale stuff to carry electrical current. I did a lot of metallography, so I cut up little bus breakers into small samples and you polish them and you get images of it. So I got hands-on metallography, I got really good microscopy work. I did a ton of other lab experiments, including mechanical testing, and that like really built up my resume. I realized from that internship, like I love hands-on application of materials, and I think I wanted something a little bit more. Like I didn't want to be in a lab for my entire life. And I also realized I didn't really like commercial products. I was like, a lot of the decisions at that company came down to what was the bottom line for cost instead of what's the best engineering that I can make. So for me, I was like, maybe I should focus on defense and aerospace because that's like you have human lives on the line, and that definitely drew me a lot more towards that mindset. So I applied the next year to Navy Nuclear Labs. It's Bettis and Knowles Atomic Power Laboratory. Knowles is right in Schenectady, right over next to the GE Research Center, and then Bettis is down in Pittsburgh. So I worked at Bettis my junior year, and then Knowles my senior year, going into grad year. And they asked me on my interview, do you know anything about welding? Because I had welding metallurgy on there. And I was like, sure. I knew absolutely nothing about welding. Absolutely nothing. But one of those things of fake it till you make it. So I went into there and I had a decent, metallurgist background. And I learned so much about stainless steels, welding, and lots of different applications because nuclear is really cool. You can't send a person down into a hot nuclear cell to weld or do weld repairs on ships that are like 50 years old. So my first internship with them, I did a lot of weld repair work and weld development. So I got to go out and work with the technicians, which I loved. I love welders. I just love techs in general. They keep it real with you, but you also get to work with engineers. So you get to contribute on the design side. And contribute from like a material selection perspective. So after those 2 summers, I decided to jump into the co-term program because I was ahead of semester, and I was in a sorority. I also was like Cindy and Sarah. I'm a huge overcommitter and continue to be in my life. I was in ski club. I was in Greek life. Weightlifting club. I did a lot of things. So I was like, I want to stay out through my senior year, and decided to do co-term. Graduated December 2017. And I took an orbital mechanics class as my pass no credit class. And I passed it. I would have gotten a C, but I just took the pass. And I never really thought about working on space stuff. But someone was like, you should check out SpaceX. So I applied for a welding engineering position, and they called me 30 minutes after I applied. And I was like, oh my God, like this is kind of crazy. Like I didn't even think, I was going to get contacted, but SpaceX moves really fast. So I locked in a position for myself right after graduating. So I graduated mid-December, had Christmas, I moved out, and I started on January 2nd in Los Angeles. And kind of fell in love with space. It's super technical. There's always something to learn. The problems are not easy. You have human lives on board, especially for SpaceX and Blue Origin. So it really holds you to a high engineering standard. And I don't know, the engineers I work with are brilliant. The people I work with are really high quality. It's like I love coming to work every day for that. And did you ask me, Marie, like what my day-to-day looks like? Is
I
that
hadn't gotten to it, but you
okay?
absolutely anticipated that, Liz. So go for it. Thank you.
Yeah. So, on the daily, like I touch a lot of things. It's kind of welding engineering is a cradle to grave job. So you start with the designers. They come to you and say, I have this design. This is kind of what it looks like. And like, I think my job is kind of like an investigator. I'm like, what's it made of? What's the application? You want to discuss the entire environment and kind of like the entire life cycle of the product. So we do get a bit into the analysis side and a bit into like the mechanical side. And then after picking their brains and making them be like, I don't know anything about this part, and then you're like, okay, go back to your homework, get back to me. We pick out materials, create the joint design, and then I go ahead and do the weld parameter development with our welders, send it through non-destructive testing. That's another really great application of material science. Um, and then do all the documentation. So once the weld's qualified, we have flight parts. The flight parts then will go and get tested either on rocket stands, or if it's for a structure, it's going to get tested in like final integration test, and then it's going to fly. So it goes to space, comes back, we take a look at things. Sometimes stuff blows up. A lot of times stuff blows up. It's rockets. And we get to look at failures. So it's really fun. Like doing non-conformance stuff. So I have a really broad amount of work that I do. I touch stuff that has, welds that are like a tenth of an inch, which is, a couple hairs wide, up to welds that are like 3 inches deep, in a variety of different materials, nickel-based alloys, titanium, stainless steels. I've touched niobium alloys too. It kind of like runs the whole gamut of metallurgy. So there's never a dull day here. Always fun stuff to look at.
I'm so fascinated by the fact that you took a class, pass no credit, just like kind of dipping your toe in it, right? Like something that's not even related necessarily to your major. And that's kind of been a huge factor in informing what you've been doing since graduation. I think that's just fascinating, you know?
Yeah, I loved RPI for the fact that you could do a pass no credit class. I think I did that, and then I took an astronomy course too. That was super fun. I did some art history courses and deep listening. But I loved like the Haas credits for that to like really round yourself out as an engineer. I have a lot of other diverse interests outside of work. Like I'm a ski patroller up here. I do a lot of gardening. But it kind of like it definitely allows you to shape yourself like that. Like you don't have to just be an engineer in your day-to-day life. But yeah, if you have an interest, just go out and do that pass no credit class. Also, it happened my best friend was an Aero student, so you know.
That certainly helps. And you know, that's really what the pass no credit is designed for your free electives, right? You can't pass no credit the hard stuff in your major. Engineers aren't allowed to do that. But the real intent behind the pass no credit is to use them for your free electives to allow you to explore something without having kind of consequences, you know? And I think a lot of times students don't get that, you know, like this is your opportunity, you know. And I've had alums come back through this industry hour over the last several years and say, you know, I kind of didn't realize when I was at RPI that I had access to all of these different courses. And, you know, I kind of never really appreciated that I had the opportunity to take all these diverse things. I always thought, well, you know, if I want to do that, I'll do it later on in life. But you kind of don't realize that once you're working, it's really hard to kind of get back and take classes for fun, you know? So to your point, that opportunity of having those free electives to use as you want. And some students are super you know, clear on what that they want to do extra stuff with extra coursework within their major, and you know, they're really clear on that. But then other students like you know, take that opportunity to try something completely different, and you know, look what it led to for you. I mean, I think that's amazing. So I just think that's really cool, and thank you for sharing that, because we don't really hear that enough. You know, students playing with those free electives. I think it's great. So you decided to stay and do the co-term, and you did say, Liz, that you were kind of ahead because of all the APs. And is that what kind of led you to think, I'm just going to stay, what the heck? It's, you know, just another semester. It's not that much more time. I'm already saving this time. Is that kind of what made you do it? Or were there other motivations that you decided to do co-term and do it like right away?
Yeah, kind of a mix. Because I was ahead was definitely a push. I knew I wanted to graduate with my friends, and I've also like I love learning. That's been a huge thing, and I still like continue it through like past college. Like now I'm like my goal is to learn one new thing a year. So like your learning doesn't have to stop after college ends. But yeah, I jumped into it because I knew I wanted to dig deeper into the coursework. Like material science fascinates me. Getting deeper into the theory has definitely helped me in a lot of hands-on applications. But I knew I wasn't in the mindset to go for a PhD. I liked research, but I didn't like research that much. And also, like, the academia track just wasn't for me. I knew I loved industry. Um, and my parents were also like, "We'll help you with 4 years." So I only had to pay the last semester myself. And, you know, working through that student loan debt, it's great. But honestly, like doing co-term helped me so much to like learn how to research, how to do it quickly and turn around data to people because I still have to do that in my everyday job of like, I'm seeing cracking in this thing and why, and then I have to just be like, I don't know anything about this material system. I need to do some brief education for myself. So that's either find someone or find some technical papers, maybe research for a half hour. That's usually when I cut it off and I'm like, no, I need to give an answer. And it's like, what can I parse out of that? So yeah. So that's what I really learned. I learned a lot actually through Professor Ulal, who's on this course. I had to do a lot of paper editing for him for his nano course, and gotta say that helped me a lot.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep.
I like that he was able to tune in tonight and see you. I'm sure he's super proud of that. I think that's great. And then I guess my last question for you, it might seem like premature for the students we have on this call, but you know, I've had other young alums who have gotten great jobs right out of undergrad. and then a couple of years later, have moved on, which is the norm today. No one stays with a company for life anymore. I'm just wondering, how did you know it was time to move on, and what made you choose the next place you were going to go? Because obviously at that point, you've got a great resume, right? You're going to have a lot of opportunity. Like, what made you decide, all right, this is what I'm going to go, and this is what I'm going to go to, if you're comfortable sharing that?
For sure, yeah. So it's kind of a mix of things. One was my partner I was with at the time was up in Washington, and I was like, it'd be really nice to be in the same place. I had also like flown up here the summer before, and like from LA. The flights from LA to Seattle are so cheap. It's like $100. So if you ever find yourself down there and you just want to bop up, it's not too bad. And I realized how beautiful the Pacific Northwest is. It's like I describe it as Vermont on steroids, and I'm big into the outdoors, so I kind of fell in love with this spot. And then I had my old boss who hired me at SpaceX ended up coming up to Blue. So he was here a couple of months and we're like really good friends still. And he's like, Liz, like we have another welding engineering position open. Are you interested? And I was kind of torn, it's like I knew I wanted to come up here but I was like, do I want to do my 5 years at SpaceX? Because that's when our stock vested. But also I was working 60 to 80 hour work weeks at SpaceX. So there were nights like I was there till midnight. There were nights I would go in at 2 a.m. because we had issues. So it wasn't the most sustainable and not the best environment to keep going for a long term. There's definitely a lot of burnout at that company, but it's the most fun I never want to have again, is how I describe it. And Blue was definitely a good choice for me. I'm like, I love aerospace and I love rockets, and I am like very familiar with different engine systems. I got to work on both Merlin and Raptor engines at SpaceX. Same, but different. And I wanted to continue in welding engineering. I was like, I think I want to go deeper. And I think, in my career, I do want to go more technical rather than managerial. Um, so it just kind of all worked out just right. I was there 2.5 years. My stock had vested, and I was like, I want to stay till first human flight at SpaceX. And we had just gotten up first Crew 1, and it's a great time to be alive and see like stuff that I had worked on actually fly up to the ISS. So yeah, it was kind of like a bittersweet parting. I'm still really good friends with my friends in LA, and I do a lot of work travel up here, so I get to go back down. But it was the right move for me in terms of my own mental health and what I wanted to do. Like I like getting out in the mountains every weekend and not being at work. So yeah.
That all makes sense. And as the Aero advisor, I can tell you I've heard many similar stories about working at SpaceX in terms of that burnout factor. But it's always that kind of tension between, I'm working with the smartest people I've ever met. I'm working on unbelievably cool stuff. I'm also killing myself, like how do you resolve that at the end of the day, right? And at the end of the day, it's how long can I actually do this for? But what a wonderful opportunity, and it must have been just amazing. It must just be amazing to work on rockets and see those things go up. I think that must be super cool. Thank you for your honesty on all that. I definitely want to come back and hit some of those when we go into our more general questions. So thank you for that. I'm going to move on to Doug, who's up in the mountains of the great Northeast, up in the Adirondacks. And Doug, I'm happy for you that you're retired again for the second time. But I know that you were doing some really cool work in your last position that drew you out of retirement. So, you've basically done everything you can possibly do in a career. And I'm just wondering, if looking back at all the things that you've been involved in, if there's anything that in particular that comes to your mind that you would give as advice to engineering students just starting out at this point in their education and or career.
Well, I would say that, to stay curious, even as a first-year student, about what the world is about. It's a big world. There's a lot going on, and if you know specifically and exactly what you want to do for your life, I would say that's unusual at that point. But staying open-minded and following what's interesting to you leads to very important open opportunities as you go through your life. And so, I didn't know going into RPI that materials engineering was what I wanted to do, but found that if you understand the basics, the foundations of the materials, can take you a lot of different places. And in my life, it was mainly around semiconductors and a very innovative, interesting area that continues to grow and become more and more important for not only the United States, but on a global basis.
Doug actually was, while Liz was talking about taking all the different coursework and, that it's a big world and, you have a lot of interests, and she really enjoyed taking her HASC requirements because it enabled her to explore a lot of different courses. It very much reminded me of some advice that you gave last year in terms of, saying it's a big wide world, and, you kind of were advocating for our students to take all sorts of different courses while they were at RPI. And what Liz was saying tonight reminded me very much of what you were saying last year. I don't know if you remember that.
I do. And, when I graduated back the first time from RPI, a lot of what's available today was not available then. It was a very narrow, specific, focused, engineering regiment. And a lot of the academic opportunities and the humanities and other areas just was not available. And I unfortunately wish there were more at that time, but throughout life, was able to do a lot of that as, I traveled, around the world and met a lot of interesting people and a lot of different cultures to understand how that all comes together to make us, make it a very interesting place.
I just thought it was great that you both had very similar perspective, many years apart, and had that same feeling. And you mentioned, Doug, that you have the 4 degrees from RPI, and some of our students are already thinking about potential graduate degrees that they might want to obtain. And you got your bachelor's and your master's in materials, then you went for the MBA, and then for the PhD in materials. And I'm just wondering if you could kind of talk our students through, that decision-making process behind that and how that went for you. I mean, you did them pretty close together, if I recall from your resume. So just, wondering if you could walk us through that process and that decision-making.
Sure. Yeah, my bachelor's and master's in materials were, within a few years of each other. And then I went out into industry, and much like I think Liz's background, I became a welding engineer as well. And not quite exact, in terms of what she's working on today, but I learned a lot in terms of, the industry, how business decisions were made. And that intrigued me even more. And it got to a point where if I wanted to pursue a PhD, to really get my fundamentals solid so that I knew more about when people were telling me the truth and knew what they were doing versus people who were making it up, I needed to do it. And my interest was more in managing teams and people and organizations and integrating the technology and the engineering parts into the businesses. And so I spent many years at IBM where, very, very bright, smart people. And I wasn't going to compete necessarily on a technical level with them, but I knew I could manage the teams that those people were in. And that to me was the intriguing part. So it all kind of fit together to go back after working a short time as a welding engineer, to go back to get my PhD. And did it fairly quickly, where the dean of engineering at the time had money, had a project, and he was busy, and so I was on my own and basically learned to manage my way through that piece of it. And along the way, had an interest in expanding into the business side. So I wanted to make sure I could understand balance sheets and profit and loss, and so I took the MBA, and also to understand how to the beginnings of how to manage people in terms of making success out of what they were doing.
That's really helpful because, we find that, I'll have a lot of students, engineering students come to me and talk about management and, dip their toe into it by taking kind of that intro to management course to see how they feel about it, even on the undergrad side. But, I think it's probably fairly common to get out into industry and find out, like, I need some kind of other skills to complement my technical skills, right? If I'm going to effectively manage people, you think management is kind of intuitive, but you kind of find out not necessarily. If I can speak for myself, I guess, it's good to have the knowledge and the training and the background to really be an effective manager, I would think.
Yes, they all, for me, fit together nicely in terms of where my interests were. And again, through most of my career in technology, businesses, and most of it in semiconductors, you needed to stay current in terms of what was important, especially in semiconductors, which was large capital investments, process choices, the right materials, changing materials as we went forward to try to make things smaller and smaller, faster and faster, and lower in power as we go through it.
Sure. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. So I guess I wanted to get into some general questions to kind of try and go back to like everyone's experience as a student at RPI, and kind of try and tie your experience as during your time at RPI with with our current first year students that are potentially watching this. So I'm wondering if I could get everyone who has a camera to put their cameras back on, of our panelists, and I think I'll start with Sydney and ask, I know you've got a little ways to go, but I'm wondering if you had so far up to this point a particularly impactful class, or a class that resonated with you, or we could even say you really liked and enjoyed, or a faculty member in any of the classes you've had that has been impactful to you. And then maybe on the other side, a class that has particularly challenged you maybe up to this point. And I'm just curious to hear, and I'm going to go around and see if other folks have the same experiences or different ones.
Yeah, so in terms of the positive side, I think one class that I took fit all of those. It's material laboratory skills, taught by Professor Dan Lewis over the summer arch. And what it is basically there was like 5 of us in the class, and it was him and the mechanical properties lab manager. And we met twice a week, and for 4 to 5 hours, we were just in the lab using equipment. So we did metallography, we used microscopes, we were doing mechanical testing, and it was just so much fun, but also I think it's had the most applicable experience in terms of applying to jobs. Like I got my job at the lab because I had done metallography before, so I kind of understood what was going on there. And then also I think everybody just calls him Dan, but Dan is just like a great professor to have. He loves questions. He's always so willing to meet outside of class and just talk about anything that you want. So definitely talk to him. I think as a little plug for Material Advantage, we're having a mat chat with him coming up soon. So watch your email for that. And then in terms of a class that I just didn't really enjoy, I'd have to say physics too. I'm just not a big fan of physics, and that class is pretty hard. I took it online. It wasn't my best class, but definitely I used office hours. I also went to ALAC tutoring, and they were a huge help and made me not fail the class, which was a plus.
Definitely a plus. You don't want to have to go back and do that all over again a second time, right?
No.
And I think physics too is not a lot of students' idea of a real good time, let's say, for sure. But it does get you to the cooler classes in your major a lot of times. So you gotta tick that box, right? Thank you, and thank you for your honesty. I'm curious, Sarah, if you have a favorite thumbs up class or or a thumbs down one.
Yeah, so I think kind of gonna agree with Sydney. My favorite and I think most useful classes that I took away from RPI were mechanical properties of materials, and then also synthesis and processing of materials, which you take your senior year. Both of them, just being in the position I am now at GE, have really helped me just understand how certain materials are going to behave in certain, situations, and just when you apply forces to them and if you forge them a certain way, things along those lines. So I think those classes, especially mechanical properties, it confirmed to me that I was in the correct major. And so I particularly enjoyed that one, but synthesis as well. But I think for challenging courses, the one I struggled with the most was electrical properties of materials. It was a very interesting class, but just in general, it's not something you've seen before. So definitely one that I struggled with, but really interesting information, and you do learn a lot. So it was helpful in the end, but definitely challenged me.
Awesome, thank you. I can just say that the first couple of weeks of this academic year, and this kind of the first couple of weeks in general, IEA seems to not be hugely popular in students' first semester, and then CAD also is the one that first semester, that combo of IEA CAD. That can be a tough one, So we have some serious heart-to-hearts before the ed and drop deadlines happen with those two particular classes. But it's kind of comforting to know that those kind of feelings kind of continue on with other classes, so that you're never done. You're never too sure of yourself and feeling like you've got it all going on, right? So that's one thing RPI teaches, is a little bit of humility at basically every level that you're at, I think, Liz, I'm curious if you've got some positives and challenges there in coursework that you experienced.
Oh yeah. For positives, I would say material selection with who became my advisor, Professor Duquette. He was just awesome. Like, I just love hearing the stories of okay, we've got a paper plant and we want to make this corrosion resistance tank. What can we make it out of? Oh, we could do platinum, but it's gonna be really expensive. It's like, haha, funny. But material selection has been really important to me. And then to echo what the other ladies said, synthesis and processes was definitely really awesome. Learning about castings and forgings too has become really important for me later in life, jumping into welding. I didn't think I was going to see very many of them, but then we developed a foundry at SpaceX, and I was the casting repair girl, so that was definitely important. And then in more of a elective class, public speaking, that was one of the best courses I have ever taken at RPI. I definitely became a better speaker. I learned how to give speeches and just be effective in front of people. If you get the chance to do it, definitely do it. And then courses that were particularly awful for me was thermodynamics. I got a 13 out of 100 on my first test, and the average was a 30. And somehow I managed to get an A- in that course. I don't really know how, but uh, you know, just keep going. And I definitely found a lot of friends through that course. I definitely made study buddies to get through it. And then another course was the statistics for engineers.
Modeling
That was
analysis.
awful. It was absolutely awful. It was another one I really struggled at. So again, take advantage of office hours. Somehow I passed, and I wish I paid more attention because statistics is really important for materials. So.
A couple of weeks ago, we had our mechanical engineering industry hour, and one of our students who worked at Tesla, and now she's at Rivian, said she really hated MAO and she really struggled with it. And she said, I really wish I had paid more attention, because I use it every single day in my job, and I've had to go back and teach myself, all those things that were taught to me, 5 years ago. So that's the second time I've heard Mal, coming back to haunt you in your career. So that's all good advice. I love that you have some similarities, but everybody has different things that hit them one way or the other, for good or for bad, right? And Doug, I don't know if you can go back in your memory to any of the coursework you had at RPI, and if you have any particularly positive or negative things to say. And probably some of the courses have changed, I'm guessing, but some of them probably have not.
Yeah, I'm sure it's both. There's probably the same basics, but the names have changed as they've gone. But it's a lot like what everybody else I think find as their favorites. It's digging into the structure of materials, the properties of materials, laboratory work, hands-on, and then probably as a thumbs down, as you talk about really humility. Was a course, and I'm not sure it's even taught anymore, called fracture mechanics. And the professor was, interesting enough that he would read out the test scores that everybody got, and I can remember him paraphrasing something to the effect that so-and-so, your grade was so low you could stand on zero and reach up and touch it. So. Talk about humility. Yeah.
I feel like that's violating all sorts of rules these days. We'll have to ask Professor Ulal if he ever uses that method in any of his classes. I don't know if that's something he ever does in his classes. But wow, that's great. That's amazing. So the takeaway that I get from a lot of your favorite classes, the ones that have really resonated with you, is that those are those upper level major specific courses, right? So you have to struggle through the IEA and the physics 2 and the CAD, and you have to struggle through all those core engineering things to get to the cool stuff later, right? But you get to the cool stuff. And that's the stuff that's really applicable to your everyday in your positions and your internships and everything like that. So I'm hoping that students take some hope from what you said, that you just got to hunker down and get through those core engineering things to get to the cool stuff later on. And that life gets better and more interesting as you go on. So Kristen, how are we doing on time? Kristen's my like disciplinarian. How are we doing on time? We probably should see if there's any student questions. I haven't been looking.
Yep. We actually have not had any student questions, but we are technically right at the end. So I don't know if we want to pause real quick to see if someone wants to throw in a question. And if not, I mean, totally up to the panelists, I guess, more than anything, if they want to hang out or if you guys want to call it a night.
So, we've got a couple of students on. I'm going to address them and not shame them in any way. But if they have any questions for any of our panel, this is your golden opportunity. And then I'm not sure if Professor Ulal is still listening, or I'm just looking at his picture. If he has any questions for any of our panelists,
I'm okay with my questions.
Okay. Okay. I'm wondering if Michael or Anthony have any questions or comments or anything for our panel. And then I also want to let the panel know that, we record these. Obviously, Kristen's recording them and she'll edit them to make them look nicer and make me look less bad at what I do. And we'll put them on our YouTube. And we do have students refer to them and we promote them aggressively. And we have students refer to them, particularly as they're, narrowing down. Kristen advises the undeclared engineers. And as they're kind of narrow down through the course of this year to, I have no clue what I'm going to do, and then get it down to 2 or 3 different majors. We will definitely refer them to these recordings to get a lot more insight. The students that are on this call tonight are not the only ones who will be watching us in moving forward on this. So if there are no student questions and Professor Ulal is all good, I guess I will thank our awesome panel tonight, because I really enjoyed hearing from all of you. We had a real diverse group and doing all sorts of interesting things. And I really, really appreciate your taking the time, especially those of you who are working and those of you who are tired after working all day. I'm looking at you, Sarah. Doug, you're retired, so, you know, no excuse for you. Sorry.
No.
But I want to thank you all. Kristen, do you have anything you want to add or anything you want to tease for next week's program or anything?
Mostly, of course, I just want to say thank you and, always expressing my gratitude to those of you who come back to talk to our students. And yep, I'll have this recorded. I'm going to send out all the information to students tomorrow. And I'll make sure you guys get the link to it too. Although this video won't go up until next Monday. That's what I do on Mondays is I do the industry hour stuff. So this will be next week's project for me. But thank you so much. And next week we are having environmental engineering, which is going to be another nice small major. So
thank you all for your time tonight. It was really nice to meet you after emailing and seeing your resume. I feel like I knew you very well before I kind of actually got to see you. And I really appreciate your time, and I know our students do as well. Awesome group, materials engineering. Thank you. Have a wonderful night, everybody.
bye.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
you.
Thank you.
Good night.